continuing our reading in Damon Knight's The World and Thorinn. Today is Chapter 5, Section 5. The magic jug was a problem. Thorinn thought of hanging it from his belt, but that would be awkward, and unless he could contrive some sort of cover for it, the jug would be spilling water down his leg, whereas if he put it in his wallet, it would take up too much room. He could fill the jug with jewels, but then would the water run over? He remembered that when he had first taken the jug from its wrapping, there had been no water in it, or at any rate only a drop. Was it being wrapped up that made the difference? He cut a piece of the transparent stuff, wrapped it around the jug after pouring the water out, and tied it tightly with strips of the same material. Later, when he came back from a trip to gather food, he opened it and it was still dry. He filled it to the brim with jewels, wrapped it again, and put it in his wallet. The next thing was to be sure he knew how to find the exit from the cavern. "A box, show me this cave again." The crystal lighted, the same bright hollow shapes appeared. "How far is it from here to the hole in the roof?" A short yellow line appeared across the width of the cavern. "It is 291 ells. The longer line lengthwise, almost to the end. And 838 ells. 800 ells? How big is this cave?" "It is 850 ells long, and 15 ells tall, and 319 ells. 319 ells wide?" "Yes, 319 ells wide." Thornton was silent in amazement. "It is all like this? All full of things?" "It is full of things." Thornton tried to imagine that and could not. "Box, who made this cave?" "What is made?" Thornton tried to explain and grew hot-faced with exasperation. "Well, look here," he said finally, and picked up his light box. "I made this box. I cut these pieces of wood and glued them together. I fitted the pieces of mica in here at the ends. Well, one of them is gone now. I lost it in the river. Then I made the lid and put it on here. And then the box was made. You see, I made it." In the crystal, an image of Thornton appeared, fitting little pieces of wood together. It was over in a moment, and the figure held a light box in its hand. "You made this box?" "That's right. Now, who made all this? Who made you?" "A box made me." "You mean you made yourself?" "I mean I made me." "Well, did you?" "A box made this box." In the crystal appeared a huge black engine, out of the end of which, one after another, were dropping little black boxes, each with a glint of crystal beside it. They floated away out of sight. It made Thornton dizzy to watch them. "You mean an engine? An engine made you? And all these other things?" "Engines made me, and all these other things." "Well, but who made the engines?" "Engines made the engines." Thornton gave it up. He made the box show him the pictures of the cave again, then what he was around it. In the new picture, the cave was a tiny bright shape at the top, while all around it other transparent passages ran off in every direction, some twisting, some straight, leading to other caverns. His idea had been to make sure there was no better way up to the midworld than the one the box had showed him before. But as he asked the box to show him more and still more, he grew fascinated by the maze of passages, caverns, and shafts crisscrossing each other. There seemed to be no end to it. New lines kept floating into the picture, while the old ones grew smaller and closer together. How did it ever come to be like that? he asked. The whole underworld. In the crystal, the network of lines vanished and a man's face appeared, brown and smiling. At least Thornton supposed he was a man, though he was beardless. His black hair was cut short and combed back, exposing his ears and forehead. His lips moved. After a moment, the box said, "This is the world." Behind the brown-faced man, a big green and blue mottled ball was floating against a background of darkness. The man's lips went on moving, but no sound came. The ball receded, grew very small. "What is he saying?" Thornton asked. "Let me hear what he says." Now the man himself began speaking, but it was gibberish. Thornton could not understand a word. The ball was tiny now, and to one side of it, over the man's head, a dot of yellow appeared. It grew slowly, suddenly. It was very big and bright, and Thornton could see flames leaping from its surface. Then it all vanished, and instead he was looking at a green landscape dotted with men and women who were all standing looking up at something huge and flat and silvery that was receding slowly overhead, as if somehow they had brought the sky down, then raised it again. The man's voice was still speaking, but Thornton could not see him. Now the sky was high overhead, where it belonged, and little dark engines were moving across it. Then they were underground, watching a huge engine that ate its way into the solid rock, leaving a bright round tunnel behind. Then there were scenes of great caverns full of engines and people, and floating egg-shaped things that crossed the caverns and darted along the tunnels, up and down shafts all brightly lit, shining. Then the brown man again, and behind him a picture like the drawing of the underworld the box had showed him before, only it was circular, with many rings one inside the other, and 4 straight lines radiating from the smallest circle of all in the center. Then the circle changed into a ball again. This time it was white. Watching these pictures made Thornton uneasy in a way he could not understand. It was like being afraid, and because there was nothing to be afraid of, that made him angry. The brown man was still speaking. The yellow point of light had appeared, and the silvery ball, shrunk into a dot, was crawling away toward a cloud of other bright dots. Now the other dots swung, came closer, darting forward like frost flakes in a storm, until only one hung in the center of the crystal, growing larger and brighter. "That's enough," Thornton said. His crystal went dark. He had been watching so long that he had grown thirsty again, and had to unwrap the jug, let it fill, drink, and then wrap it up again. The smallest piece of cloth he had was far too bulky to carry, but he cut off a strip an ell wide and as long as he was tall. He spread this on the floor and rolled up his cheese boxes and other things in it: clothing, shoes, the little figurines, tools and knives, the talking box, some leftover jewels, turning the ends in as he went. As he did this twice over before he had the roll packed to his liking, with the heavier things in the middle and the food outside where he could be easily reached. He tied it with strips of cloth and cut other strips to make loops which would fit over his shoulders. And that's the end of section 5.